Hello and welcome to Inspire to Resign, this week's weekly wisdom. I am Tammy Jaffe, your host, helping you go from employees to entrepreneurs without all of the headaches. And I am excited to have a special guest with us today. And we are going to be talking about when you exclude, you lose, because we live in this world where we spend time on excluding new ideas, opportunities, experiences, people, right? But the potential that we have and the benefits of those are determined by what we decide to exclude, what we do and how we do that. And Julie Geisman is here to talk to us about how to make those choices, how to look at things from a better perspective, how to make sure we are not losing by excluding. So Julia has over 30 years of experience, and she has been laser focused on the people side of business to increase individual, team, and organizational success. For the last 15 years, she has been attacking the root cause of workplace inequities, concentrating on inclusion. Career Agility, the company Julia founded, shows organizations how to build and sustain inclusive work environments. Their comprehensive approach measures the processes and systems required for creating a company culture in which everyone has an equal voice, as well as development and advancement opportunities. She is the author of a series of career advancement books, numerous articles on inclusion and diversity, and currently is working on the chapter of the hidden cost of exclusion for a compilation book that's going to be released this fall. It is so great to have you here, Julia. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work.
Well, Tammy, first of all, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity because it's really a gift and a pleasure. And also, I want to focus on the fact that we're talking a lot about exclusion as it pertains to entrepreneurship within this context. So I'll get into that. And how did I get into this? Well, I think that I was born into the notion of recognizing the inequities that exist and all of us have experienced being the outsider. And I just find that a lot of people who are excluded have a lot to bring to the party, so to speak, and that it limits the people who are excluding. It limits their ability to be more dynamic. It's not to say that they're not dynamic, but it adds another dimension. So I have been working in the human infrastructure side of the business equation, as I said, for many, many years, in helping people unlock their potential so that they can include, so that they can add more to the conversation. And one of the things, particularly with women, I found is we get locked out. Mm. And that's not just for women. It's people who are different and think differently than the people who are in power. So, and it really does cost the companies a lot as far as being able to attract and retain talent, as far as being able to come up with innovative solutions, recognizing business opportunities, etc. Because when we exclude, we're excluding people and ideas that don't necessarily align with our thinking or don't look like us or speak like us or think like us. But which is really a shame. And so when you start thinking about the exclusion within the context of entrepreneurship, you want to understand what you're doing individually to exclude or to not see opportunities that are in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is, I understand what you're saying about with women too. They feel excluded, and I've been there. I've been through that. When I left my corporate career as the head of real estate technology for one of the largest real estate investment companies in the world. And, being a woman in a leadership role in technology, and especially
Worst.
even in the real estate world, I had like a double.
The worst. The worst.
It's, it was different. And I had to learn how to deal with the men and others in the areas of being able to kind of stand up and own the value, own the worth that you bring,
Right,
so that you will be heard, so that they will understand where you're coming from, because it's a very competitive world.
right.
And when you're not, given a seat at the table, sometimes it can feel exclusive when, you feel like there's other people that are not including. And I think that's one of the things that, I'm big fan of, helping people with their leadership and knowing how they even need to be inclusive in leadership, because I've been through those circumstances where I have felt excluded in a leadership role, and times where I may have excluded people and didn't even realize it. And when it's brought to my attention, like realizing you got to make some of those shifts and understanding what to do. But so for you, why is the focus on the exclusion?
Well, it's another way of looking at inclusion
Hmm.
because there's a cost behind excluding. So, but here's the irony of it all. We exclude people, opportunities, especially opportunities and experiences that take us outside our comfort zone. Because we get, oh, it's something I'm unfamiliar with, or
Yeah.
I may feel as if I'm incompetent at that moment in time,
Hmm.
when you walk out of your comfort zone. So the thing is that we also experience exactly what you said, Tammy, of we have a fear of missing out on things.
Yes.
We have a fear of and we know what that's like. That's the irony of this whole conversation,
Hmm.
which is as much as we fear being excluded because of from lots of things like the opportunities that you mentioned, business wise, or the opportunity to have friends. I mean, how many people that may be listening that have been afraid of or suffering from FOMO, the great FOMO, the fear of missing out? I mean, and what types of things were they? You
Yeah,
know,
you guys just drop FOMO in the comments if you have been in one of those situations where you have a fear of missing out on something, where you feel like you've been an outsider, or you feel like there's just something going on without you because you've been excluded. I think we've all been there. So I should see some
oh,
FOMOs coming through. And,
all
we
of us.
all had those moments, right?
So what happens is, and you mentioned this, unconsciously and consciously, we say, okay, these are the things I'm going to engage in or I'm not going to engage in. Sometimes it really, as you said, Tammy, it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction. Like that happened to me fairly recently when somebody called me up and they wanted to rearrange the schedule. And my immediate reaction was, oh no, I can't do that.
Hmm.
And I hung up the phone and I was thinking, what was I thinking there? So I called her back and said, yeah, okay, fine. Let's go ahead and rearrange things. And sometimes what happens is we get so blinded by our own goals and our own thinking that we eliminate possibilities that are right in front of us.
Yeah.
And that is also another way in which we unconsciously, so to speak, or consciously, it's kind of a blend of both, exclude a new avenue. So friends of mine said many years ago, said, when you get blinded by your goal, you really limit yourself because you don't see what's in front of you. And I've done that multiple times in my life. I think we all have. We're so fixated on this is the way I'm going to go.
Yeah. And I think I've seen it where people are so fixated on, like, this is the one thing and I can only do it this way, and this is the way it needs to happen, and these are the only ideas that I can focus on. But I think, especially people going from employees to entrepreneurs, when they get into the entrepreneur world, it's a whole new world. And all of these things open up, and there's all these, I call them bright, shiny objects, right? Like, I've got the one secret. You've got to try this. You've got to do this. And they don't even know what they should be excluding and including.
Right.
And so I can also see it go to the other extreme where one of the things that I focus with people on is these are the things you shouldn't be doing yet. These are the things you should exclude at this point in your business because you're not ready for them yet. But I was thinking about this when you were talking about FOMO and the fear of missing out, because fear of missing out is it's a sales tactic. Let's be clear on that, right? It's what
Absolutely. We all know that one.
Yes, it's what people use to try to get you into their programs, try to make you feel like, if you miss out on this opportunity, you are missing out. And so there are times when it's used in the opposite, right? They're trying to include you in something by making you feel like you're going to have FOMO if you don't do it. And I think it's so important at times for people to understand and know or have some sort of guidance to say, yes, this is what you should do. No, this is what you shouldn't do. And, I was just having this conversation with someone earlier this week about, it was webinars. There was somebody trying to sell them into doing webinars, and they didn't have any clients. They didn't even know what their business was. I'm like, you don't need that yet. That will come, but you first have to get these other things in alignment first. And so there's times when we have too many ideas and don't know how to choose and pick that one thing.
Right. So I've been an entrepreneur for a really long time. And I went from corporate and into entrepreneurship. And one thing that was very clear to me is that I had great hubris about what I bring to the party, my uniqueness, and the rapidity with which I was going to achieve my goals.
Yeah.
It was like unbelievable. And I was very clear about that, thinking that, what I was offering was the best thing since sliced bread. But the reality is that it's probably not, unless you package it right and you stay absolutely focused on what you're doing. So you bring up a really good point, which is, when do you make a conscious decision to exclude, not because it's a new idea or it's a person who looks or thinks differently, or that it takes you out of your comfort zone. You exclude those things that may be momentarily a distractor.
Yes.
And I think that's a really big distinction to make. It's not that you're excluding, you're setting a priority for yourself.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right, which is, well, one of the things I've experienced being an entrepreneur as long as I have is that you start with one thing, right? Which is probably what you say to people. Start with one thing, see how it works, and then maybe you have to do some tweaking. And then, I can't begin to tell you how many times I have reinvented myself as an entrepreneur, going from one thing to where I am today, which there is a very strong why behind. And I think that's also the other question that entrepreneurs need, especially new entrepreneurs, need to ask themselves. Well, why in the world are you doing this? Why are you taking on a risk that is really significant? And what is the why you're going to communicate to your potential clients or customers? And is there any other group out there that is doing the same thing and may have the same why? And what color lipstick do you need to put on if you're a female? So,
and it just made me think of too when you said it. So a couple things. One, I mean, I completely agree with like the setting priorities that you talked about. And in the corporate world, we did that all the time, right? You would like have these brainstorming sessions, come up with all these ideas, and then you have to set the priorities and figure out what budget you have and what goes where. And so sometimes it's, well, we can't do that this year, but we'll, put that on the agenda for next year. And so setting those priorities becomes critical. It also made me think about, how when you're an entrepreneur, when you're first starting off, I think one of the things that so many people have a hard time with is actually niching down. And I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago in one of the talks I was doing. We're taught in corporate world about diversity and inclusion, and you include everybody and you include all these ideas and you include it. And it's like, it's gotten to a point where it is a topic that everyone is required to go through. It's training that you have to go through. And it's kind of drilled into your head that you need to be inclusive at all given times. And when people move to the entrepreneur world, they don't want to exclude. And when they think about that in the sense of, I want to help all people with all things, and that actually hurts them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because until you get super clear, and I try to explain to people, like, it's not about the exclusion, it's about the focus, right? It's about the knowing who you can really serve and how you can really help them. And until you get that narrow message, until you get really clear on who that is, it otherwise it just doesn't land with people.
You,
It
you
doesn't
can't,
make
yeah.
sense.
You can't help all people all the time. Not everybody's
Right.
going to be under the same tent or at the same point on their career journey.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I actually have a workshop on building an inclusive mindset. Because Tammy, what you talked about within corporate America is the DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they've become kind of catchphrases.
Mm-hmm.
But the real question is, from my perspective, inclusion is not separate. It is the DNA of everything within an organization, that it needs to be built into or baked into the culture. So you don't even have to talk about it. The systems are set up, the culture is set up to ensure that everybody has a voice and makes an equal contribution. That said, the question is, what is an inclusive mindset?
Mm-hmm.
And this is really important for an entrepreneur because number one, I call them the 5 C's. One is curiosity. So as an entrepreneur, you have to know how to ask the questions to uncover what the need or the pain is in order to come up with an appropriate solution or interaction or exchange. And this goes into setting priorities, which is if that person has a need that is not really in your wheelhouse, so to speak, there are 2 ways you can go. One is you can refer that person on to somebody else with whom you have a good relationship, or you can say, maybe this is an opportunity to expand. That's number one. Number 2, the notion of collaborating. So when you're working with a client, this is all part of the inclusive mindset, is to understand it's a collaboration. You have to have a mindset of collaborating with your client. Otherwise, it becomes a power trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the last thing in the world a client wants to experience. It. You know more than the other person. No, you're there to support their success and to collaborate with them. The other C, third C is communication savvy. Which is everybody, the old social styles, the MBTI, Myers-Briggs, and then you have the DISC, then you have this, and then you have that. And everybody does have a different way of communicating.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm sure you tell people this, Tammy, that you need to know your own communication style to better recognize the different communication styles that exist and then to adapt the message. It's not that you're giving anything up. It's just that you are adapting to the circumstances. And also to understand there are significant gender differences. The way men communicate is significantly different than the way women communicate. And women, neither men nor women understand there are differences, and that creates some barriers, unintentional barriers.
Yes.
And then there's the courage. You have to be willing to, again, step out of your comfort zone and to speak truth to power sometimes, which ties back to what you were saying about setting priorities, having the courage to be truthful to yourself as well.
Yes.
Because your power as well. So when you start talking about, and then commitment is a big one. And in entrepreneurship, you have to have a commitment to really doing what it needs to take, but you also have to have a commitment to be inclusive in the way you see the world. So if you're, yeah, sometimes I'm an abysmal failure at all this, because it's an evolution. It's not like we're going to get to an end point. There is no end point. That's the game,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. I that was a great way to wrap that up. Like, right, there is no end point. It's a continuation. It's continually going and moving. And I love the 5 C's and what you do with it. I actually have 5 C's that I talk about in my book too for making a lasting change in your life. So I can totally resonate with what you're saying. And the way you put that, and there is collaboration and the courage and the commitment and being able to move through those things to understand what is truly exclusive versus what's inclusive. And when it's there's those moments and times where it's not about you're excluding because it's not a good, it's a bad thing to do. There's times when like marketing message needs to be exclusive, right? And talking to people directly. And so being able to get to that point where you can communicate with the people in a way that they understand what you're saying, in a way that is going to resonate with them.
Right. But what's interesting is words are powerful. So when you think about excluding in the context of marketing, what you're really talking about is targeting,
Yes.
not excluding, you're targeting.
Yes. Yeah. And you're being more, I guess, inclusive of the people that are like your direct audience, right?
Right. And you have a better understanding of who your direct audience is, and
Yes.
you're eliminating the noise so that they can really hear the message. But so it's really fascinating because when you were talking earlier in the conversation about what we were talking about, setting priorities, excluding opportunities, it's not really excluding anything. And you have to really think about the impact of words. You're
Mm-hmm.
not excluding anything. You're setting your priorities, which is a whole different conversation, a whole different mindset, as opposed to really eliminating
Yeah.
things consciously or unconsciously that don't align with you. That's the issue. It's like,
Agree. Yeah.
okay, it's like ideas and thoughts, new ideas or that may come along your way, and you exclude those because they don't align with your thinking or they challenge your expertise. That's exclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Or eliminating people who don't look and think like you.
Yes.
That's excluding. And then again, what I mentioned earlier, eliminating opportunities, possibilities, and experiences that in fact take you out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's excluding. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the exclusion of it kind of ties into when you're not expanding, when you're not giving yourself the opportunity to understand where you could have additional ideas and things that come into play. So it is a kind of a play on words in some ways, but I agree with you, there is a difference between being excluding someone versus being able to understand when you're setting those priorities and focus. And I think the focus and setting of priorities is where some people need that guidance and understanding of what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, another way of thinking about it is thinking about the status quo. There's a German philosopher years ago called Hegel, and he talked about a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis. Okay, so let's talk about that in everyday terms. There's the status quo, and something comes along and disrupts that status quo. Think about it in technology. You come from the technology world. Or think about the iPhone. That was a huge disruptor, or even Facebook, huge disruptor. But out of the status quo plus the disruptor, we now have a new way or a new synthesis, a new opportunity that we did not have before. So thinking about that as far as being open to ideas that are unfamiliar to us, well, ask, dive into it a little bit and find out. It is a disruption to your status quo. But remember that disruptor can lead to more possibilities.
Yes, more possibilities. I do a retreat called Inspired Possibilities. So I'm always about, there's more possibilities. There's endless things out there that you can do, but then how do you narrow that down and focus on it? And where do you go from there? So I could talk to you about this forever. I love this conversation.
As you can tell, I'm really excited about the topic.
I know. Yes, I think we both are. And so, how do people get in touch with you? Or I think you have a free gift for everyone. How can they get that from you so that they can learn a little bit more about this?
Well, I developed, we all need to know where we're at. Do we have an inclusive mindset, or are we narrowly defined? So I developed an assessment along with an action plan. So you could just kind of check yourself out. Where are you at on the exclusion, inclusion thinking scale? And then if you choose to take action, then there's some worksheets that you can use to help you guide you through the process, and to also let you know, success points of success, so you can congratulate yourself. So if anybody is interested in getting that copy, just put me in the chat. And that's what we decided, right? Put
Yeah,
me in
just
the chat.
type me in the chat now if that you want to grab that, and she will reach out to you and send that to you so that you can get this. I love assessments. Who doesn't love an assessment, right? So, do an assessment to see where you fall on that scale, and then what action plan you need to take from that. I love that guide that you have there.
Great, great, great. This has been really interesting because I hadn't thought about what I do within the context of entrepreneurship, but it's applicable. So
Yes.
I hope that it's added to, your knowledge base, Tammy, certainly, and to add it, provoke some new thinking in the people who may be attending.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And, I have from being in the corporate world, a lot of people in corporate. So if you're listening, you're in corporate and you need someone to come in and speak to your organizations about this discussion around exclusion versus inclusion and what that means for you and your organizations. Julie is an amazing speaker and would love to share with your organizations as well.
yes, so thank you, and do feel free to reach out even if you have some questions.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Has been great chatting with you and talking more about this subject. So just know that, when you are excluding, when you're pushing things away, when you're not opening yourself up to new possibilities, you are losing. So as you go throughout your day, I always give you all challenges. My challenge for you today is take a look at what you're doing today. Where are you excluding? Where are you not accepting additional possibilities that may be there for you? And jot them down. Think about them. Think about how you can make a shift in that area so that you can go out and have more inspired possibilities in your life. It's been great having you all here this week on our weekly wisdom. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.